One of the most misleading ideas in spiritual teachings today is the concept of a higher self. Today, we're getting into why this notion of a higher self is misleading you and wasting your time chasing illusions, costing you suffering that is not necessary. But first, let's set the stage. The modern spiritual landscape is flooded with a haze of vague concepts, half-truths, and misconceptions that only deepen seekers' suffering and keep them stuck in seeking. Clarity is not just important, it is liberation. In a confusing spiritual landscape, clarity is everything. Truth, when seen clearly, sets us free. I know this firsthand. Like so many seekers out there, I spent 20 years seeking. Not just from not knowing, but from being misled by well-intentioned spiritual teachings that deepened my confusion and stretched my seeking into years of unnecessary struggle. I spent those years chasing a mirage, believing I needed to become something else, better myself, purify myself, to attain some distant state, to find my true immortal self. Lost in the fever of practicing spiritual techniques, I was not even aware that what I was looking for was actually myself. Not some other, better self. Had I understood that sooner, the very idea of seeking would have made no sense. Why search for what you already are? Yet, I spent years lost in the labyrinth of confusion, fueled by spiritual misconceptions, until I realized that my seeking itself was the veil, the ignorance, the lie. That every practice, every technique, every striving was built on an underlying, unnoticed assumption that I was separate from what I was seeking for. The desperation of that search, the aching frustration of never quite arriving, it could have been avoided. I could have saved years of confusion. But that was my journey to clarity, and I am grateful for it. Had I not suffered so much back then, perhaps I wouldn't have been so relentless, so deeply driven to find a breakthrough, one that cuts through the confusion completely, so others can have it simpler, more direct, and faster than I did. So I became relentless in deciphering the process of self-realization in depth, obsessed to make it as clear and accessible as possible to any sincere seeker. And that is what I did. That is why I created Seekers Academy, your academy. There are countless challenges the seeker faces on this path, and clarity is a game changer. Getting back to today's topic, misleading so-called spiritual concepts are a big part of perpetuating confusion and prolonging the suffering. One of those deeply misleading concepts is that of a higher self. The higher self is portrayed as an enlightened version of you, wiser, purer, untouched by human flaws. Many seekers strive to connect with this so-called higher self, believing it to be the key to liberation, to happiness, to transcendence. But the truth is, there is no higher self. There is only one self, and that is already and always yourself. The term higher self might seem helpful at first, but in reality, it creates misunderstanding, feeds illusion, and induces confusion. Let's break it down. Words shape perception. The phrase higher self implies a gap, a distance between the self you experience now and some greater, more enlightened version of you. But awareness, the true self, what you truly are, is not higher or lower. It simply is. And it is here, now, ever present. It is not distant, nor is it something to reach. It is the very awareness with which you are aware of these words you hear right now. When seekers believe in a higher self, they unknowingly create a sense of distance, as if their true self is something separate and far away. This reinforces the illusion that realization is a future event, something to reach one day, instead of recognizing that it is always available and accessible here, now. The fundamental illusion that keeps seekers trapped in seeking is the belief in separation, that they are a limited person seeking something greater than themselves. The concept of a higher self fuels the illusion that you are incomplete as you are, that enlightenment is somewhere in a future, something other than who you are right now, and that you must strive to become your higher self. This keeps the mind endlessly chasing an imagined state rather than recognizing the truth of being, which is always present. This is why so many seekers remain stuck in the pursuit, never realizing that there is nothing to attain. All is needed is to see clearly what is already here. If there is a higher self, then what is the lower self? A middle self. Who is the one experiencing all of this? The moment you introduce levels of self, you create mental complexity where there is none. The mind starts analyzing. Am I operating from my higher self or my lower self? How do I stay connected to my higher self? What if I fall back into my lower self? Instead of realizing the simple and direct truth of the one self, seekers get lost in trying to manage imaginary divisions. This confusion keeps the idea that you are a separate self in business because it loves chasing, endlessly seeking an idealized version of itself, keeping alive and fueling the illusion of separation. But self-realization is not about becoming a better self. It is about seeing clearly what you are and always have been. Pure being, pure awareness. Here's something to understand once and for all. Chasing levels of self, divisions of self, won't reveal your true self. The modern idea of the spiritual path is filled with the illusion of moving higher. But awakening isn't about ascending. It's about simply seeing through the illusion of separation entirely. Yes, many teachings explore multidimensionality, levels of the soul, and spiritual hierarchies. But these describe the dream, the illusion of fragmentation and progression within the mind's constructs. While fascinating, these frameworks keep seekers engaged in endless concepts, endless seeking, endless exploring, reinforcing the idea that they are incomplete or need to ascend through the levels to reach their true nature. This is why so many spend years in this pursuit, always feeling ultimately unsatisfied, which fuels the seeking, mistaking movement within mind constructs for deepening the realization of self. It's all a pursuit in the mind. The truth is not found in fragments of the self or hierarchies, but in the direct recognition of what has always been present, whole, and indivisible. The illusion of spiritual intermediaries. Spirit guides, deities, and interdimensional beings are often seen as a means for self-realization or proof of progress. Many seekers look to them for guidance, believing that they are a validation of spiritual advancement. But while these experiences can be awe-inspiring, they remain part of the dream, simple mind constructs, because there are no other selves. There is only one self. And these beliefs keep seekers outwardly focused, chasing mystical encounters instead of turning directly to themselves, to the truth of their own being, to the essence. To know yourself, you don't need an intermediary. No external wisdom, divine message, or celestial being can give you yourself. That said, a true guide, one who teaches you how to directly experience your true being, is not an intermediary. They do not stand between you and the truth. Instead, they point you back to yourself, offering the clarity needed to recognize your infinite nature. A genuine teacher does not encourage dependency, but empowers you to stabilize in the knowing of your true self. The self you are looking for is the I you refer to constantly in your own experience every day. There is no other self. There is no higher self than yourself. But when you are not clear, when you don't directly know yourself, you second-guess your decisions, you lack self-confidence because you don't trust yourself, you struggle with self-esteem because you don't know your inherent worth, you chase self-love as if it's something separate from you. The belief in a higher self stems from not being clear on what the self actually is. The awareness that you are aware with. You are not an unreached yet higher self. You are the pure, unchanging awareness with which you are aware of your every experience that has been present in every moment of your life. Once this is seen clearly and then grounded gradually, you start to live as who you truly are, liberated from mental and emotional constructs and constrictions, free and peaceful. There is no higher self. There is only awareness, limitless, ever-present, untouched by personal identification. You are that. Not a better version, not a higher version, not a perfect version, but the awareness that you are always being. And while there is no higher self, there are identifiable stages of the process of deepening your realization of yourself as infinite awareness. And you can watch the video that we've made about these stages to recognize them in your own experience. This essential shift in understanding that you already are that which you seek, that you are the awareness with which you are aware in every moment of your experience, is simple but profound. When it lands, it changes everything. It directs you toward the essential, and it gives you the clarity that the only truly important, most meaningful and completely fulfilling thing in your life is to know yourself, is to know what the self is and what is its nature. In conclusion, the truth is simple. The self is not fragmented. You are not on a journey to your higher self. You are the one and only self. And when that is seen, not as an idea, but as an undeniable reality, the fascination with mind constructs fades. And what remains is something infinite, still, eternal, a radiant presence. You. If you're ready to go beyond the glimpses and ground yourself in the reality of your own being, in the truth of your own being, a new self-realization success group is now open. Choosing this path will move you towards deepening self-realization faster than you ever thought possible. The sign-up window for this new group closes on April 22. Find the links in the description box below this video. Remember this: your true self is not divided into levels, nor can it ever be fragmented. And it is not something uncovered through an endless process of healing or seeking. It is here, now, always. Obvious the moment you stop striving, when the chase for an idea about yourself dissolves into the simplicity of what you are now and always have been. So, instead of searching for yourself in the illusion, wake up to reality. Wake up to yourself. If you want help, it is here. All you need to do is take the first step.